Today's not Thanksgiving, but it's a day that we give thanks. Because what's a good day to give thanks? Today. And so we're talking about the power of gratitude. I'm so glad you could join us for this special day. There's a story of a man who had traveled to a distant city on business. And while he's walking through the city, he happened to come upon a guy that he had known some years before. It's like old friend. So the man that he came across had fallen on hard times, and now he was a beggar sitting on the street with his tin cup. So the businessman, after talking with his friend for a while, he really felt sorry for him. So he pressed $50 into his hand and walked away. Several years had passed when the businessman once again was visiting the city. Like years had passed. And he ran into his friend again. And he's still out there with his tin cup. And so as he was turning to leave, he gave him a $10 bill. And the homeless man, looking at the $10, said, "Hey, what's this? The last time you saw me, you gave me $50. Now this time only 10?" And you kind of get where this is going. Businessman replied, "Well, friend, since last time we saw each other, I've gotten married, we bought a house, had a child. My expenses are really far greater than what they were then." And the man says, "Oh, I see. You're trying to raise a family on my money." Well, sometimes we just take on an attitude of entitlement, don't we? And we just take everything for granted, and yet there's more power in just living a life of gratitude and being thankful. So today we're celebrating Thanksgiving. It's a time that reminds us that the healthiest and happiest people in the world have learned the secret of keeping an attitude of gratitude. Paul said, I know what it is to have plenty, and I know what it is to have want. And I found the secret of contentment in all situations, right? I can do all things through Christ who gives me strength. He had an attitude of gratitude. And so we all know it's a good thing to be grateful. And the Bible often reminds us to have a heart of thanksgiving. For example, Psalm 100 verse 4 says, "Enter his gates with thanksgiving and into his courts with praise. Give thanks to him and praise his name." 1 Thessalonians 5:18 says, "Give thanks in all circumstances." Sometimes, though, we don't really know how crucial it is and how many problems we suffer simply by neglecting to be thankful. Ingratitude can creep in to our hearts, and over time, we can start to suffer the consequences without even realizing it. And so there's consequences to being ungrateful, to having kind of an attitude, kind of like the guy with the $10. How does that affect us? Well, let me give you several ways. We'll just you got your sermon note guide with the blanks. I'll put the answers to the blanks up here on the board. First of all, ingratitude affects us spiritually. It affects us spiritually. If I'm not grateful, what does that mean? It means I'm prideful and unbelieving. If I'm not grateful, well, what am I? I'm probably prideful and probably unbelieving. I don't really fully have faith. So ingratitude is really a fruit of pride and disbelief. In the book of Exodus, the Israelites were ungrateful for God delivering them out of slavery in Egypt. He brought the whole country out of Egypt. They were all slaves just because they were Hebrews. Delivered them all out. But instead of singing his praises every day for bringing them out of this life of harsh slavery, they grumbled and they complained about every little thing along the way. And in their pride, they thought they knew better than God. That was their pride. And in their disbelief, they didn't think God was strong enough or good enough to get them through what they were facing. That's really what it comes down to. It's It's like if I'm ungrateful, I'm taking on an attitude of pride that maybe I know better than God how my life ought to be going. And I'm also taking on an attitude of unbelief that I don't really believe God can get me through this. They didn't really believe that he had their best interests at heart. So that ungrateful attitude caused them to end up wandering the desert for 40 years. So spiritually, ingratitude affects your relationship with God, and it makes you spiritually sick, makes you ill. You end up banishing yourself to a spiritual desert that can last for decades. Your faith becomes stale and dry, and you don't enjoy your walk with God. Serving God feels like this added burden. You don't see any miracles or blessings in your life. All you see are the negatives. And why is that? Because you might be spending more time grumbling and complaining rather than thinking and praising, or thanking and praising. Grumbling and complaining is a bad habit. That's what I've noticed. It's a bad habit. You don't have to have that habit. You don't have to grumble and complain. Okay? Grumbling and complaining is not evidence that your life sucks. It's you making your life suck. That's what's happening. It isn't a reflection of the truth or reality of the situation. People going through exact or worse things than you have better attitudes. I'm not saying you specifically. I don't know who's got a bad attitude in here, but I'm just saying that's the way it works. That's the way human personality works. That's the way it works at the spiritual realm. Your grumbling is not a reflection of the truth or reality of the situation. It is a half-blind view because it does not acknowledge the full truth that includes the fact that God has been very merciful and has blessed you far beyond what you deserve. That's the way I look at it. God has been so merciful to me. I deserve so much worse than what I have on my worst day. Look at this video from Nick, one of my favorite guys. Someday I hope to meet him. It's Vujovic, Nick Vujovic.
And I was playing soccer, and I was on the field, and my friend here in Brisbane kicked the ball to me. And you know when something's coming for you, and it doesn't matter what you do, you're dead? I had that feeling, so I jumped up in the air and I did this karate kick in the air, and my foot bent on itself backwards, and I heard a and I was like, and my foot went, oh. And I'm like, I need this. And I'm on my bed looking at the ceiling, I'm thinking, man, I'm gonna be starting to be thankful for my little foot instead of being angry for what I don't have.
Yeah. What does he not have? Did you notice? Arms and legs. All his life. All his life. Ingratitude affects you spiritually. It also affects you psychologically. Why all these big words? No, we don't stop there. Psychologically. Okay. Psychologically. There have been dozens of studies. I'm a counselor. I read these things, and there's been dozens of studies on how gratitude affects people's mental health. Did you know that it has been clinically proven that ingratitude makes you depressed and anxious? You thought it was a result of depression and anxiety, which kind of creates this vicious circle. Obviously, when you're depressed and anxious, you have a hard time seeing, what is there to be thankful for? But it works the other way too. Neglecting thankfulness leads to depression. It opens the door to toxic emotions like jealousy or envy or resentment, frustration, regret. Ingratitude, here's a blank for you. Ingratitude weakens your mental resiliency. Man, I got to find shorter words. Chutzpah, I don't know. Strength. Strength is the longest word with only one vowel. That's interesting thing. Ingratitude weakens your mental resiliency. And what does that do? You lose mental toughness. You're less able to handle stress. Do you know anybody that when stress comes, they're a basket case, right? If things get tight, like financially or on a time crunch, or things go wrong or something, come on in, guys. You can just come right on in. We got all this space right here for you. That they are just a wreck, and they're kind of like yelling and screaming at everybody, and just high blood pressure and everything. It might come from losing mental toughness to be able to handle the stressors of life, and practicing gratitude and thanksgiving on just a regular, daily, ongoing basis actually strengthens your mental toughness. And you can handle stressors a little bit easier, maybe a lot easier. Ingratitude affects you relationally. When we are being ungrateful, what's that do to our relationships? You know, you think about what that attitude is. Ingratitude makes a person a sourpuss. Long words again. And a grumbler. And people tend to do what with the sourpuss and the grumbler? Just kind of avoid. It's like, just, this is not going to be pleasant. I think I'll move over this way. You know, and they just don't need that kind of negativity in their life. Now, there's a difference between being sad or grieving, okay, and being a sourpuss, wallowing in self-pity. Okay, there is a difference. Being sad and grieving, that is normal, natural. Being a sourpuss and a grumbler, that's a choice. Okay? And the difference between being sad and grieving and being a grumbler is the absence or presence of gratitude. Also, when we forget to be grateful, we tend to act in other ways that push people away, like playing the victim or having unrealistic expectations. And we'll look at those closer in a minute. A final consequence, though, of ingratitude is how it affects the course of your life. Oh, a short word, good. The course of your life, right? Romans 1:21 lays it out pretty well. It says, for although they knew God, talking about people that have gotten far from God, although they knew God, they knew he existed, they knew, boy, he must be there. They neither glorified him as God or gave thanks to him. They didn't glorify him. They knew he must be up there. They knew that they couldn't be here by accident. They knew that somebody's bringing the rain and the harvest and all that kind of stuff. But they didn't glorify him as God, and they didn't give him thanks. Maybe they just said, oh, it's just the way it is. I'll take it for granted, you know. And kind of like, oh, you're building your family on my money. For although they knew God, they didn't glorify him. They didn't give thanks, but their thinking became futile. And their foolish hearts were darkened. That's what happens. What happens when we don't glorify and give thanks to God? Our thinking becomes futile. Futile means empty. It means vain. And it means foolish. And our hearts are darkened. In other words, we don't understand. We don't get it. Imagine what having futile thinking and a darkened heart does to the course of your life. Have you met someone like this? It's like their whole life is cursed. James says that our tongues can set the course of our whole life on fire. James 3:6. So ungrateful grumbling and complaining can be just as damaging as boasting and cursing. It gives you an outlook on life that makes your whole world rotten. So my favorite story about this is Papa. One day, Grandpa's taking a nap on the couch, and to play a joke, his mischievous grandsons got a hold of the Limburger cheese and dabbed it on his mustache while he's asleep. Pretty soon, Grandpa wakes up, and he's got this sour look on his face like, what is that awful smell? And he gets off the couch, and he starts sniffing around the house and trying to find, where's this stench coming from? This room stinks. So he goes into another room, and he says, this room stinks too. And he goes into every room, this whole house stinks. Finally, to get away from all the stink, he goes outside, and he goes, it still stinks. This whole world stinks. Ingratitude is an attitude that you carry around inside of you, and it hinders your life in every way. It leads to spiritual problems, mental problems, isolation, even a cursed life. The sooner you get the Limburger cheese off your mustache, the sooner your world will stop stinking. Okay? So women are all thankful in here. Oh, good, I don't have a mustache. On the other hand, the attitude of gratitude is what happy people have. They do. And it's not because they were blessed first. They were grateful first. And then the blessings come. Okay? It's how those who have a blessed life live. You know, no matter if they're rich, or they're disabled, or they're poor, or they're healthy, or sick and dying, those who have a grateful attitude are the winners in life. I didn't put this in my notes, but it just came to mind. How many here have visited a third world country? Okay. How many here have done that like as a mission trip? Like you went to a village as part of a mission trip in a third world poverty-stricken country? You have, Shelley-Ann. I have too. And Pat and I both have. Well, not quite a third world, second world, but it was poverty-stricken area of Mexico. And here's what we notice. They don't have a lot of stuff, but they sure seem happy. The kids are wadding up a paper with duct tape, and that is their soccer ball. And they are having the time of their life. And then you come in and you're trying to help people, and they're just so happy to see you. What makes them so happy? What makes them, because they have a gratitude and they have their expectations probably in a better place than we do in America quite often. And so how do I break out of an ungrateful spirit and into a grateful spirit? Well, there's 4 things we need to realize and know and accept to have an attitude of gratitude. First, we need to come out of denial. That's one of our favorite things that we say and celebrate recovery, you know. Denial's not just a river in Egypt. You know, it's an attitude that we need to come out of, get out of the river. We need to come out of denial about it, because I think a lot of times we're the last ones to know that we have an ungrateful attitude. Right? Everybody around us can kind of pick up on it and notice it and are affected by it, right? And we just think, what's your problem? It's like, well, you have an ungrateful attitude. So we need to come out of denial about how ungrateful we can be. And there's 4 things ungrateful people do not do, okay? The first thing they don't do is they don't do unrealistic expectations. You know, they don't have such a high expectation of everything that they're never really just thankful for life and breath. Unrealistic expectations include things like life should be fair. Okay, how many found that to be true? It's like, no. And it seems like it should be, but no, it isn't. So don't stop expecting life to be fair. We're not to heaven yet. Okay, everything be fair and just in heaven. On this side of death, it's the fall, it's sin, it's rebellion against God, and people being their own selfish jerks, and so life isn't always fair. Okay? And so I have seen something else under the sun, Solomon said. The race is not to the swift or the battle to the strong, nor does food come to the wise or wealth to the brilliant or favor to the learned, but time and chance happen to them all. It's like life's not always fair. Second thing unrealistic expectations include is opportunities will just fall into my lap. It's like if I just sit here on my couch, then the check will come in the mail, you know? It's like gold bricks will be falling out of heaven onto my property so I can rebuild it. Opportunities will just fall into my lap with little effort on my part. No, you know what? The luckiest people in the world are the ones who work the hardest. The harder you work, the luckier you get. That's what it seems like. Number three, I should be able to succeed at something easily. It's kind of related to number two. Fourthly, everyone should like me and accept me. That's an unrealistic expectation. And a lot of us carry that expectation, like I want everybody to like me, you know, and I want everybody to accept me. But for me to just try to expect that without just being some kind of a chameleon to everybody, and even then, people start to see through it, and it's like, oh, don't want to mess with him. Everyone should like me and accept me. That's unrealistic. Number 5, people should always treat me correctly. Should and do, an expectation of it? No. 6, more stuff will make me happy. Oh, that's one that we deny that we have, but we really have it. That is big time denial that we live in America. Is like we say, no, you know, money's not everything, and more stuff doesn't make you happy, and all that kind of stuff. But I sure do want this, and I want that, and I sure do want that, and I'm going to get this, and I just want toys, build up all the toys, because down underneath, I really believe that more stuff will make me happy, and it kind of does for 5 minutes. That's an unrealistic expectation. You get to the end of that road. I did see somebody have a bumper sticker that said, the one with more toys, with more toys at the end of the life wins, or something like that. And I just thought, the one with more toys when they die still dies. Here's a 7th unrealistic expectation. Every spouse, every boyfriend, girlfriend needs to write this one down. I can change him, or I can change her. Just please, give it up. Give it up. When you have unrealistic expectations, you set yourself up for a lot of disappointment. Disappointment can make you feel ungrateful unless you change your expectations to be more in line with reality. Grateful people are able to be grateful because they didn't put unrealistic expectations on the world or themselves or others in the first place. They don't really make life about their expectations at all. That's not how they're wired. That's not how they gear their brain. It's not about my expectations and whether they're being met or not by you or the world or myself. The long version of the Serenity Prayer, I love this. We say this all the time. In CR, we say the whole long prayer. And we say, living one day at a time, enjoying one moment at a time, accepting hardship as a pathway to peace, taking as Jesus did this sinful world as it is, not as I would have it. There you go. That's the path to serenity. Grateful people take this sinful world as it is and are grateful for whatever good things come their way. The path to serenity is truly to surrender to God and be thankful in all things. Let's see. So one thing grateful people don't do, they don't do unrealistic expectations. And second thing they don't do, because they don't have unrealistic expectations, grateful people also don't do entitlement. This is just this is a dead-end road. That is a dead-end road. My little joke at the opening with the guy that got $50 and 10, and that is that sense of entitlement, and it's a dead-end road. It will not get me anywhere to think that people should give me something just because I breathe, just because I'm here. So a sense of entitlement is when you think you deserve privileges that you haven't really earned. And so these are people who believe life owes them something, like a reward, success, a particular standard of living, just because they exist, just because the people are here. Entitled people aren't grateful. They don't believe that they've been given anything. They don't believe they've been given what they deserve. So why should they be grateful? Who would they thank, and for what? Josh Hatcher wrote this. He said, "No one owes you anything. If we live our lives expecting people to hand us anything, we'll not only alienate all of our friends, and we'll create a situation where our value is puffed up and manufactured and not based on our actual value. When something goes wrong and crisis comes, we're left feeling bankrupt." Josh is right. So Matthew 9:35, Jesus said, "Anyone who wants to be first must be the very last and the servant of all." Here's another Nick Vujicic, I think I'm getting it, Vujicic video. Yeah, do those lights again, that helped.
If he gave me everything I wanted when I wanted it, I'd never be a person of gratitude, which is to me the secret of all secrets, where we come to God, and it's actually this mindset that despite your circumstances, even when you don't get a miracle, you can be one. He can give me arms and legs. I can pray for arms and legs, but I don't need arms and legs. I can have a pair of shoes in my closet today, which I do just in case he gives me arms and legs. But whatever it is, I just know that I love him and he loves me. God, if you give me arms and legs, I'll trust you. If you don't give me arms and legs, I trust you.
All right. If he gives me arms and legs, I'll trust him. If he doesn't, I'll trust him. Number 3, the third thing that grateful people don't do entitlement, and they don't do victimhood. Another dead-end road. The victimhood game is like a swirling down the drain kind of game. Somebody said a sense of entitlement will guarantee you a seat at the victim's table. A psychologist, Dr. David Lay, described our present-day victim culture in Psychology Today magazine. He said, "Critics of our culture of victimhood are often attacked as abusers themselves, perpetuating a culture of harm and assault. Frequently, the response of that embattled critic is to assert that they're a victim as well. Stop victimizing me. No, you're victimizing me by calling you a victim, or you're victimizing me for saying that I don't want to be a victim. Men criticized as sexist for challenging radical feminism defend themselves as victims of reverse sexism." You see how this goes? People criticized as being unsympathetic proclaim their own history of victimization. In courts during sentencing, it is common, even fashionable, for felons to proclaim that their history of victimization contributed to their harmful, illegal actions. In our culture of victimhood, victims can be excused for victimizing others, taking away the rights, freedoms, and autonomy of others in service to their victimization. So don't blame me for victimizing you, because I'm a victim. This is a self-perpetuating vicious cycle. It gets nowhere. It is a race to the bottom. There are no winners in the victim game. Everyone is a loser, keeping themselves under the feet of people who they say are victims too, who say that they are victims. So grateful people don't buy into that culture. You know, they see the blessings that God brings to their life, not the oppression that they imagine others inflicting on them. Galatians 5:13, "You, my brothers and sisters, were called to be free, but don't use your freedom to indulge the flesh. Rather, serve one another humbly in love." And then lastly, grateful people don't do pessimism. They don't do pessimism. Somebody once said, you know, a pessimist is one who says things can't get worse. Things can't get worse. And an optimist says, sure they can. It's like, okay, maybe that's turned around. Actually, a pessimist has a hard time being grateful for anything because he only looks at the negative side of everything. You know, the grateful person recognizes the problems, but also sees the blessings and the silver lining of every situation. Some people could see an entire field of roses and only see the thorns in it. Others could be given a single weed and only see the wildflower and say, how beautiful. Perception is a key component of gratitude, and gratitude is a key component of joy. And we know that in all things, God works for the good of those who love him, who have been called according to his purpose. Romans 8:28. When we recognize where we have unrealistic expectations or have felt entitled or played the victim or were pessimistic, we can learn to trade those attitudes for different ones. We can change. Okay? So once I recognize the ways that I've been ungrateful, what else do I need to know and believe to become a genuinely grateful person? Here's another insight. After I come out of denial, I need to see the promised land. Okay, you might have heard that, promised land. What does that refer to? Okay, when the Hebrews were in slavery to Egypt, right? And God delivered them with Moses, and they went through the Red Sea and all the plagues and all that. Big cataclysmic story. You should read about it. And in Exodus, and where were they going to go? Where was this whole nation of millions of Hebrews going to go? To the promised land. The land flowing with milk and honey. The land where the country of Israel presently resides, along with a whole bunch of countries around it. That whole area was this promised land that they had come into thousands of years ago. And so for me, I need to come out of denial and begin to see the promised land. I need to see where I'm going. Changing my attitude will change my life. Earlier I talked about that. Dozens of studies have been done about how gratitude and ingratitude affect people's lives. And so this graphic I put in your notes, and I think we have it here, shows a picture of the benefits of gratitude. And you can see emotional, social, career, health, spiritual. This is a synopsis of dozens of studies that have been done on this very concept of giving thanks, being thankful and having gratitude. And they find out all the benefits that it creates, and they all point to happiness. There's 5 scientifically proven benefits. First of all, gratitude, or here's 5 of them. Gratitude opens the door to more relationships. Not only does saying thank you constitute good manners, but showing appreciation can help you win new friends, according to a 2014 study published in the journal Emotion. The study found that thanking a new acquaintance makes them more likely to seek an ongoing relationship. So whether you thank a stranger for holding the door or send a thank you note to the colleague who helped you with something, acknowledging other people's contribution can lead to new opportunities. Here's another one. Gratitude improves psychological health. Gratitude reduces a multitude of toxic emotions, from envy and resentment to frustration and regret. Robert Emmons, a leading gratitude researcher, has conducted multiple studies on the link between gratitude and well-being. His research confirms that gratitude effectively increases happiness and reduces depression. Another study, grateful people sleep better. Writing in a gratitude journal improves sleep, according to a 2011 study published in Applied Psychology, Health and Well-Being. Spend just 15 minutes jotting down a few grateful sentiments before bed, and you may sleep better and longer. Another study, gratitude improves self-esteem. I like that one. A 2014 study published in the Journal of Applied Sports Psychology found that gratitude increases athletes' self-esteem, an essential component to optimal performance. Other studies have shown that gratitude reduces social comparisons. Rather than becoming resentful toward people who have more money or better jobs, a major factor in reduced self-esteem, grateful people are able to appreciate other people's accomplishments. So don't read Facebook to compare yourself downward. If you're going to get on Facebook, just say something that you're grateful for. You know, I posted a picture of Pat with the youngest grandsons. Oh, this is so great. And you might have seen it if you're my friend on Facebook. I hardly ever post, and if I do, it's probably a picture of grandkids or Pat. And so she's with the two little ones, and they're up on their step stools at the counter, and they're making the rolls that you're going to eat today, okay? And they're delicious, even though little hands were involved. There was no snot or anything, okay? And just, they were doing what? They were pouring ingredients. So she would measure it out and they get poured in. Okay, they're like 3 and 1. They're almost 4. And so I took a picture, kind of got over there so I could see them all working at the counter. And I posted that. You know, it's like, they call her Aga. So making rolls with Aga. You know, and it was so cute. And the 1-year-old has a little tongue sticking out, you know. And then, you know, got nice comments back. It's like, oh, they're so cute and all this. And then the older grandsons, who she started this tradition with our Liam and Connor, who are like big now. And we got feedback saying that they were offended. It's like, you know, even show a little GIF, you know, one of those little videos in the text, just going, oh, that's our thing, you know. It's like, well, no, it's all the grandkids, okay, and you'll get to do it if you can get here Thursday night. We're going to make rolls, and they're coming and they'll make rolls. But it was so cool, you know. It's just like, if you're going to be on Facebook, do it in a grateful way. And celebrate other people, and they weren't really offended. They were just pretending. So, I think. So, another study said gratitude increases mental strength. And I talked about that a minute ago. For years, research has shown that gratitude not only reduces stress, but it may also play a major role in overcoming trauma. A lot of us have had trauma in our lives, and a lot of us are actually at this church because we have experienced some kind of trauma in our past, and we're seeking out God for healing, and this church is one that is friendly to that, and yeah, and celebrate recovery and all of that. Thanks God. Thank you, Jesus. But gratitude may also play a major role in overcoming trauma. A 2006 study published in Behavior Research and Therapy found that Vietnam War veterans with higher levels of gratitude experienced lower rates of PTSD. Okay, a 2003 study published in the Journal of Personality and Social Psychology found that gratitude was a major contributor to resilience following the terrorist attacks on September 11th. Recognizing all that you have to be thankful for, even during the worst times, fosters resilience. That'll help you. The Bible is so wise, because 1 Thessalonians 5:16-19 talks about how that rejoicing and thankful attitude keeps the spirit from being quenched in our lives. Rejoice always, it says. Pray continually. Give thanks in all circumstances, for this is God's will for you in Christ Jesus. Do not quench the Spirit. Now, let me let me give you an explanation of that verse, because we twist it around. We say, we read it and it says, give thanks in all circumstances, and we think it says, give thanks for all circumstances, because those circumstances are God's will for your life. That is not actually what the intention of that verse is. It's when we are thankful, first of all, God's Spirit flows more freely in our lives. But not only that, but when we're also able to experience a greater sense of peace. But what that verse is actually saying is that in the midst of a hard circumstance, find the silver lining, give thanks, and turn your attention to that. Okay? That will help you in the midst of it. And it'll give free flow to the Spirit in your life. And what is God's will? God's will is that we be thankful even if we go through hard times. That we go through it with a dependence and trust in God. Like Nick was saying up here. He was saying, if he gives me arms and legs, I'll trust him. If he doesn't give me arms and legs, I'll trust him. Right? Okay, so thankfulness and peace are tied together. So at this point, someone might be thinking, okay, I can see that ungratefulness works against me in my walk with God, and gratefulness works in favor of me in my walk with God, but can I really change? After all, old habits die hard, which is true. In fact, I think there's a whole song about it, Old Habits Die Hard. It's an old song, talking about an old girlfriend or something. After coming out of denial and seeing the promised land, the third thing we need to do is to then start walking. Start walking. This means that I have the ability to change my attitude and life through Christ. I just need to start. Okay, 3 points about this ability. I can do all things through Christ. Okay, Philippians 4 says, I know what it is to have plenty. I know what it is to be in want. I have learned the secret of being content in any and every situation, whether well-fed or hungry, whether in plenty or in want. I can do all this through him who gives me strength. Right? I can do all things. I can do the hard things. I can do the easy things. I can do the fun things. I can do the ugly things. I can do the things that I don't want to do. I can do it all through the strength that Jesus gives me. Number 2, to change our attitude, I can refocus my mind on the good. Romans 12:2 says, don't conform to the pattern of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. Refocus your mind on what is good. Philippians 4:8, finally, brothers and sisters, whatever is true, noble, right, pure, lovely, admirable, if anything's excellent or praiseworthy, think about those things. The Bible clearly says that by changing how we think and what we think about, we can experience an inner transformation that completely changes our lives. Renewing our minds is not something outside your grasp. He gives you the ammo, okay? You just need to pull the trigger. And thirdly, I can give thanks in all circumstances. So we have all things. I can do all things through Christ, right? And the second one was what? Refocus. And the third one, finally, is give thanks. And I kind of explained that it's in all circumstances. You know that God has a plan, and his plan is wonderful, even if you can't see it right now. And you know that God will work all things together for your good in the long run, and you just need to be patient. So these circumstances may indeed be God's will for you to face at this time in your life, but it's saying that God's will for you, above all, is to have a thankful heart in the midst of your circumstances. If Paul can do that, like Paul said, I rejoice always, pray continually, give thanks in all circumstances, then you and I can do it as well. Let's do one more video from Nick Vujicic.
And that's the wisdom of God, and that's the wisdom of my parents. When I asked them the bigger questions of my future, they're like, well, look, just take one day at a time. God's with you. And you're like, yeah, okay, but how's that going to work out, right? That's what we want. We're stressed. I want to know the plan. What's the plan?
Yeah.
And God's like, well, if I give you a plan, then what's the point of having faith?
Yeah.
The third thing is to talk to somebody. You know, if Nick Vujicic never told somebody what was really going on, never counseled with anybody, never asked for help, I wouldn't be who I am today.
Yeah.
And I give all the glory to God for everything, and that He's my greatest counselor today, or want today. Help me to be used, that I can give somebody else what they need, what they want, or even just help them. Like whether we go to a cancer ward in a hospital to make those kids smile, or go to an orphanage, or just go feed the homeless, go try be a miracle for someone else. That is a great medicine of the heart that my parents taught.
Amen. Thank you, Nick. So ingratitude hinders your life in every way, leads to spiritual illness and mental illness and isolation and a cursed life. Get the Limburger off our lip. We need to come out of denial and see the promised land and start walking. And we all have that ability. Rather than complain about the things that you think you deserve, just take a few moments to focus on all that you do have. And developing an attitude of gratitude is one of the simplest ways to improve your satisfaction with life. Commit yourself today to have a constant attitude of gratitude.